Michael here at Quarantine Cuisine. Welcome back to episode 7, which means we're halfway through our isolation period, which is fantastic. No symptoms, we hope it stays that way. Before we get started tonight, I just want to pay a great shout out to a local company here that's doing really great work to make sure that people in the community have the groceries and the food that they need. And that's the folks at the Apple Market, the Tiburon family and their entire staff. They're working really hard. They have an incredible curbside service. So because we can't go out and go into grocery stores, we simply email in our order. They call us back with things that they might not have or some substitutes that they would recommend. Pay by credit card, jump in the car, pop the trunk, don't even have to get out. They load the groceries in and we're back home in a jiffy. So thank you so much to everybody there. Jennifer dealt with you. James, I've heard from you as well. So great work, everybody. And we really appreciate it. So thank you. So let's talk about the meal tonight. Tonight we're going to have a wine braised pork shoulder. I don't have pork shoulder, unfortunately, so we're going to use some center cut pork chops. I'm going to cut them into some really nice pieces, and we're going to braise those with some white wine. Serve them with chestnuts, actually roasted in on a stovetop in the Dutch oven, and then also some sweet potatoes as a bit of a starch side to it. And then aside from that, I'm going to do some broccoli florets. With garlic and some olive oil. I'm going to toast those up and get them nice and charred in the oven, and that's our meal for tonight. So why don't we just start cooking? Okay, so first step for prep for tonight is to get our vegetables ready. So I'm going to start with a whole onion. Probably going to do maybe 3/4 of this. So I'm going to do this a really nice, decent chop to it. Don't want this very rustic. We want this a little finer for this particular dish. So slice it up nice. As you can see, I like slicing the onion into the bloomed end here. A little tip by a good friend of ours who's a chef. Then turn it on its side, just get everything all ready here. Dice that onion up really quickly. Sharp knife's always important when you're dicing onion, so we're not launching any tears in the air here. So, all good. So the onion, to be honest, I think that's just about enough onion that I need for this particular recipe. So I'm gonna just put this off to the side really quickly. Okay, perfect. Next up is some garlic. So I'm gonna chop up some garlic. And I like to have my garlic more like a very chunky kind of dice to it. I'm not one that likes to kind of like mince it up unless it's really for more of a refined dish. This is a one-pot dish in the Dutch oven, so I'm not too concerned about the garlic being just a little more choppier than finely diced or minced, as they would say. So got enough garlic here. I'm going to keep a couple aside here because I'm going to do those later, just for the broccoli. Now what we have here is prepared these earlier. So these are chestnuts. So these chestnuts were roasted in the oven, they were cooled, then peeled, and so we're just going to add these in. They're nice and soft right now, so they're just ready to go in with the pork as one of the ingredients. So these are already done. Also what I have is, I've got some mushroom here, and this mushroom is just a small little portobello, really tiny mushroom. And when I do smoking of my ribs or smoking meat outside, I always put vegetables on, whether it's tomato, onion, garlic, some mushrooms, and then I'll take them off the smoker after I put them in storage bags, put them in the freezer. Because I find that just adding a little bit, I'm not going to add the whole mushroom, I'll probably just add maybe half of this, but I find by adding a little bit of mushroom into things like stews or stocks or soups, really gives a very nice smoky flavor to it. So this isn't so much about the mushroom itself, it's really more about capturing the wood, and I think in this case generally I use a lot of hickory, so that would be the kind of flavor it's going to impart into this particular dish. So the mushrooms all just chopped up very quickly as well, again not really to add a lot of texture to it, but to just add that nice smoky flavor to the pork. Okay, and the last thing we have here is to get our sweet potatoes chopped up. So they've already been peeled and they've already been in some water here just to keep them well. So I'm going to just chop these up into about 2-inch pieces, 1-inch pieces. We don't want to have them too fine, because what happens is once this braises and it simmers in the water, what's going to happen is the sweet potato will become like somewhat mushy. So we want to have some nice bite to it still by the time we finish this up. So anyways, I got 2 more to do. Okay, so our sweet potato is all chopped up nice now. We have 2 sweet potatoes in total that we chopped up. We've got about half a large onion chopped up as well. We've got our garlic prepared. We've got our chestnuts ready. We've got our mushroom ready. So our vegetable prep is all done for this wonderful meal. Now we're going to start cooking. Okay, now let's prepare our pork. So ordinarily a pork shoulder would be in order for this, but given the circumstances that we have with regards to shopping and etc., having to be in self-isolation, I just managed to get some center cut pork chops. So they are bone in. So what I'm going to do in a situation like this, it's not all bad either. I don't mind actually trimming them up a little bit into some bigger chunks. Not that we want to have it too finely cut, but I just don't mind being able to trim around the bone a little bit, put some bigger pieces in here. It's not like we're trying to serve everybody a massive pork chop, but I think this will be really nice just to be able to cut around the bone, create some decent sized pieces here. So we have 4 pork chops here, probably 1 more than we really need for the meal, but I'm going to go ahead and cut them all up. And then we'll have everything ready. We're going to season this up, so just stay tuned as I cut the rest of this up. Okay, so we have our pork nicely cut up here. Now all I'm going to do is just season it a little bit, salt and pepper, nothing more. It's going to braise in the pan. So mix this all up nice. We'll get some olive oil in the bottom of the pan in a minute. So the pork cut up into some nice pieces, nothing too small, nothing too big. I'm not one big fan of serving a big pork chop unless it's a center cut pork chop that you actually grill up really nicely or do sous vide and then finish in the pan. But for a Dutch oven dish like this, I like cutting them into pieces, somewhat like a stew. So the pork is all done. Now we're ready to get our pork prepared, and I gotta tell you, this Dutch oven by Lodge has been amazing. You can do all kinds of things in it, braising, you can do stews inside this. You can also make sourdough bread, believe it or not. Our middle son Brandon makes his own sourdough bread in something like this. So first thing we're gonna do, the pan is nice and hot. I'm gonna put some olive oil in the bottom of this, maybe about 2 generous teaspoons there. Let that heat up just for a second. We're gonna pour our pork inside right away. You want to get a good sear on the pork. It'll take a few minutes. What you could notice when you do put meat in a hot pan, sometimes you'll notice it feels like it's sticking. And there's this kind of this saying, which is it's not ready yet. So in other words, if it's sticking, that means just leave it a little longer. Then when it gets kind of sealed enough or it gets cooked enough, then it'll be okay to turn over. So I don't try to force it. When you force it, then you start tearing the meat apart, and that's not what you want to do. So just hold on here a little bit. I'm going to work this to get the pork all braised. turn the flame down just a little bit. I'm going to add about half a cup of white wine just to deglaze the pan here a little bit as well. Help this come along here a bit. This is our house-made Chardonnay that I'm using. You can use any dry wine. Now I'm going to add the onions that we chopped up earlier to this mix as well. Stir that in very nicely. I'll turn the flame up just a little bit now. We don't have enough heat here. We'll add in the garlic as well. Probably about 3 cloves of garlic in here. Lots of flavor. Smells really nice. Wish you could smell it on your end, but gotta trust me on this one. I'm gonna throw about 3 sprigs of thyme in here as well. I'm going to put in the mushrooms that we chopped up. These are the smoked mushrooms, except that big one. The big one I'm not going to leave in there, but the ones we chopped up, I'm going to put them inside here. Oh, already you can smell the smokiness of the mushrooms having a role in this cooking of this dish. Let this cook up for just a minute or so. I'm going to add our sweet potatoes that we cut up earlier into nice, kind of bite-sized cubes. We have 2 sweet potatoes in here. About 3 pounds of pork overall, if you want to measure. So on a boneless level, it's probably about 2.5 to 3 pounds of pork. Now I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken stock to this mix as well. Get everything nice and covered here. It's going to simmer for a couple of hours. Just maybe a little bit more water in here. The broth seemed a little thick, so all good. And the last ingredient I'm going to add is I'm going to add the chestnuts in. So the chestnuts that we roasted off earlier, peeled them, are in here now. A quick, really kind of side story on chestnuts. Dorothy and I walked the Camino de Santiago, or a second one actually, from Lisbon through to Santiago de Compostela this past fall. And along the way, we encountered these older women who would point to these little thistly things on the side of the road under a tree. And much to our astonishment, they were chestnuts. So you had to find a way of getting these prickly little round things open, which we tend to do with a rock or whatever. And we opened them up and we had fresh chestnuts right off the tree. They're absolutely amazing. A great snack, a very welcome treat during our walk each day. So these are chestnuts that we roasted off here and then peeled so they become nice and soft. So everything's in the pool, as a guy on television would say. In fact, a guy whose name is Guy. But anyways, it's another story. Okay, we're all set. So what's going to happen, I'm going to cook this off for a few minutes. I'm going to reduce it to low. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to put it on simmer, and this will simmer for about 2 hours. Everything will thicken up very nicely. Everything will cook together. The pork will come out like fork tender, so it's amazing. So that's the cooking method for the pork, and now we're just going to let it simmer for about 2 hours. Okay, now that we braised the meat and added all the ingredients in, it's just simmering on the stovetop in the Dutch oven. I figure we can get our broccoli done. So the broccoli's already been cleaned and cut into these beautiful florets. So simply, I've got some parchment paper on the pan here. I'm just going to empty out the broccoli onto the pan here. Enough for 3 portions. That's really what we need for tonight's dinner. So we might have some extra. It'd be great for a salad or something else we can add it to. So to be able to do this, that should be good. I think that's it's enough for 3. Okay, maybe we've got one hungry lad in the house, so we're gonna do that. Okay, perfect, good, that's all done. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is drizzle some olive oil over top here. So make sure get some olive oil on the broccoli. I'm gonna season it with salt and pepper. bit of black pepper on here as well. I've got some red chili flakes, not to add a lot of heat, just a little bit of flavor, perhaps just a little bit of a kick to it as well. And on top of this, I'm going to add, I just minced up some garlic, 2 cloves of garlic I minced. Just want to put this and blend this in here as well. And I'm going to put this in about a 400-degree oven for, I'm going to say 20-30 minutes. What I really want to get is I really want to get the broccoli kind of a char to it. So I'm going to mix this up a little bit just to make sure that all the oils, everything's coated quite nicely with the oil. Although broccoli, it's hard to coat completely because you'll have to soak it in oil, which I don't want to do. Just enough oil to put a char on it. In a 400-degree oven for probably 20-30 minutes. I'll keep an eye on it. And then we'll be good to go. So I'm going to time this with the completion of the braising of the pork with our chestnuts and sweet potatoes. So anyways, we're good to go to the oven when we're ready to go. Let's chat about our wine pairing for tonight. You know, ordinarily with pork, you consider more of a white meat, so you want to pair a white with it, even a Pinot Noir, but the cellar is empty of Pinot Noir. So actually, given the flavor profile with the smokiness of the mushroom, and the flavors, the chestnut, whatever, kind of the creaminess. I actually chose from our selection here a 2015 Bordeaux, so it's a French Merlot by Jean-Pierre Morillo. That's my French, so anyways. So this wine is kind of a full-bodied wine. It's got some acidity to it, but it's very full-bodied. It has some hints of currants and plum, which I think will complement the meal very nicely, the pork and the flavors that are in there. It's got some hints of licorice, some vanilla, as well as some cassis in it, with a little bit of back flavor of tobacco and some other kind of subtle notes in it. So this is the wine we're going to pair for tonight. So anyways, one piece of feedback I got is I should smile more on camera. So brother, I'm smiling more on camera, how's that? So that's the wine pairing for tonight. It smells beautiful in the kitchen here. The pork is on the stovetop in the Dutch oven, and when the time is right, we'll get the broccoli with the garlic in the oven, and then we'll be ready to plate and ready to eat. Okay, so we have everything out of the oven now. So the pork has been simmering here nice for about 2 hours. It actually looks beautiful, nice and thick sauce in here. The broccoli we just got out of the oven right now, so it's nice with some salt, pepper, some garlic, and some olive oil with some red chili flakes on it. And then we decided last minute, because this is more of a stew, so we thought let's just put some like plain white rice on here in the bottom of the plate. Actually adds a bit of starchiness to this as well to soak up the beautiful the liquid in the pork roast as well. So anyways, we're going to the plate right now. Okay, we're ready to plate this delicious meal. So the first thing is, as I just mentioned, we decided last minute to put some long grain rice on the plate just to soak up some of these wonderful flavors from the pork stew. Then I'm going to put some pork stew on here with the pork, the sweet potatoes on here. I'm going to take some of the thyme out of here, so I'm just going to put that right on there very nicely. With there's chestnuts in here as well, which we put on here as well, so this is good. And then I'm going to put some broccoli just around here, just a bit of broccoli around the plate to complement this beautiful dish. Broccoli done beautifully in the oven, kind of charred and roasted a little bit, which is fantastic. So there you have it. We have a pork that was supposed to be a pork loin, but it was like a pork roast that we cut up and made it in chunks, and we'll have some chestnuts in it, some mushroom that's been smoked with beautiful flavors of onion and garlic as well. Then we did some rice in the bottom, sweet potato here as well, and then the broccoli. So this plate is done.